I'm just gonna let you guide me through.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming back for another episode, actually, episode 2 of Family to Family Workshop. I would like, before I start, to give thanks to our sponsors. First and foremost, we like to give thanks to St. Mark, St. John for letting us have the location, the church. Also, we would like to give thanks to our community neighbors and friends of the Beechwood neighborhood. We would like to give thanks to ESNL, Federal Credit Union, FSLC Inc., and Brother Jeremy for getting us together this evening. Tonight, we will be having our show and interviewing Kareem Hayes all about Black fathers and education. Uh, Black fathers and education is a big topic to me and my family because education has always been big, and Black fathers in my family has stressed that education. Well, I should say on my father's side of the family. And so I have a list of questions. I have some things and some questions that we want to ask Kareem around education because on the other hand, on my mother's side, education wasn't big and Black fathers in education wasn't a thing. So here it is, you have the same girl, one side where Black fathers in education is big and the other side where it isn't. And so I want to start out with the question, what is Black fathers in education and what does it mean to you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me here today. And I'm just kind of thinking about the question to where to me, it's multifaceted, right? So there's different roles that a father just plays in general, right? Meaning that you have fathers who are working, you have fathers who are in school, you have, fathers that have one child, have many children. You have fathers that have kids through sports teams, and so there's a lot of uh, areas or a lot of things, a lot of ways that men can be fathers. But for me, a Black father in education is really one that's involved and engaged. And the reason why I say involved and engaged because I had did a research project some years back, and it was on parent involvement. And one of the things that I learned is that involvement looks different for people, or involvement and engagement look different. So being involved, for example, can be when my son comes home and I'm like, hey, did you do your homework today? He goes, no, Dad, I didn't do it yet. I'm like, all right, you didn't do it. So before you play the game, make sure you do your homework, right? And then engagement to me is like a next step. It's that, hey, did you do your homework? All right, let's sit down and do it together. So that's kind of how I see like education is that there's just different levels of involvement, different levels of engagement.
I like how you break that down because what I said, how I come from a family where my father's side, you had Black fathers stressing education, and then on my mother's side, you didn't have anyone stressing that, but the engagement was there on my mother's side, so it's different on my father's side. Now we are educated, but here it is, my grandfather. He doesn't have the education of a third grader. Retired from Elmer Davis. My parents never lived in anything rented, so and he was engaged.
Yeah.
Not involved, I like how you say involved and engaged. So that's big, those two words, being engaged and being involved, not to take us off topic of Black fathers in education, but those two words are big, Kareem. Like you broke it down to be involved. So we actually need Black fathers in education to be involved and engaged.
Yeah, because when I was working particular organization, I was part of the Black Fathers group. And one of the things that was important for me as one of the people that was coordinating it, and crazy thing is that when I was doing this work at that time, my daughter wasn't even born yet.
Wow,
I wasn't even a father yet. But I took that also as an opportunity to learn, to see what other fathers were doing. So they were coming up to the school and walking around, right? They were asking their kids about homework. They were doing the after school activities. And so I watched and I learned. But then also, too, I was there to also try to provide some opportunity to get fathers in the door as well. So like before I even started this journey, I didn't even have a child yet, but I knew it was that important. So I had to get started.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great way to get started, actually
Hmm.
getting in those rooms before you had a baby, to give your baby 100% you.
Hmm.
So my next question is, how do we support men that are in those rooms
Hmm.
or are returning fathers trying to get back into those rooms
Yeah.
that may be involved and not engaged, or engaged and not involved?
Yeah. We live in a world now where, the technology is there for us. So when I used to run a program, federally funded program, one of the things I would do is I would just call. I just make a phone call.
Aw.
Hey, how's it going? Da 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 da. Your son is doing this, or your daughter is that. And one of the things that I learned actually from Freedom School is, when you're calling parents, you don't always want to call about bad news,
Okay.
right? You want to call when good things are happening too. Like, so and so did a great job, in class today, and this is why, and give an example, right? So one thing is calling. The other thing too is inviting to different things that are happening. So if there's something that's happening after school, that's one way to do it. So then people might say, well, what if I'm working? That's great. You know what? There's letters that also get sent home. There's emails, and that's what I mean by uh, technology, is that there's different ways to make contact with people,
Gotcha.
right? We can't get the excuse like, well, I don't reached out and I ain't hear from them. Well, keep trying.
And that's where that being involved.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because if I know,
There's no excuse, parents.
no, there isn't, and and I got two of my
He
own.
just said we have social media, we have letters in the mail, we can stay involved. We're gonna get to engage next, but he gave us social media, phone calls, like he said, always not calling on a bad note. Hey, teach, how's it going? Just calling to check on XYZ and what's going on. You'd be surprised, parents, with a phone call, but that's the first step to involvement. So we can't use the excuse we're always working, because 9 times out of 10, majority of us are working to pay and make a way for our children. But we have to start getting involved as Black parents, as Black fathers. So now that he told us some ways about being involved, let's see about engagement.
Yeah. So when we think about engagement, we think about, like, one of the things that I used to do some time ago was helping students get into college. So I use that as an opportunity to engage with parents and to engage with fathers as well, right? So this is probably more of a me thing, but if I'm meeting somebody's dad, I'm gonna ask questions, and I'm gonna try to find that one thing that's important to them. So for some, it's education. For some, it's a lot of sports. It could be music. It could be, well, I don't want them to do what I did, right? I want them to do something opposite. And then I use that as a point of conversation. So I give an example. Like, if I've had athletes that I've worked with. And so I talked to dad about, like, hey, have you looked at this camp? Have you looked at CTC? Have you looked at, I think it's MJ, different local folks that are doing those skills camp. Like, no, I haven't thought about that. Like, yeah, these are some things that you could do. Even like with school, even talking with, like, dads about, like, how to approach teachers. So there's a lot of things going around in the internet, but one of the things that I've been successful with, even in my own as a dad, is I approach the teacher as a peer. Like, how's it going? Hey, just want to understand what's going on with my son. How's he doing in class? Is there anything I can do to help? And for some reason, when you say those words, is there anything I can do to help? It's like these doors open, and it's like, you know what? Yeah, there is. He's doing really great on this, or she's doing great on this, but this is something we need help with. All right, cool. We're gonna work on that at home.
I really love that. I really love that. For those of you who just tuning in, Brother Kareem Hayes was just giving us tips. We're giving Black fathers, but I'm gonna say us, because as a parent, I'm taking in those tips too, on how to stay engaged. In the world that's so busy, like he said, and to even come up with the conversation, because a lot of parents do be busy. We're parents, so you understand. And he said, and I think this is amazing. Coming up with something that you guys have in common, something to bring up the conversation is one way. Something that's their interest. If their kid is an athlete, and he said, bring up that conversation around college, which is something important to all parents. To keep them talking to you, to keep them engaged. I really like that, Brother Kareem, because like you said, we have so much going on as parents. And as a parent, when he expressed and shared about and just talking to the teacher and asking him, how can you help with that student? You'd be amazed how much that engagement will make a relationship and a bond between you and that teacher that will help that
Mhm.
student that
I,
will go so far.
and I just want to add too, like even last year, my son was having some difficulties in class, and a lot of it was just, he's coming up. He's was in second grade at the time, and just going through a lot of that child development, and even like just understanding child development, like understanding that a 7-year-old is going to act a certain type of way,
Mhm.
right? Like I can't expect my 7-year-old to be the same as my 10-year-old. He's got a couple of years ahead of him. So what we found to be successful is when, as parents, we partner with the teachers, we partner with administration, we partner with all the folks that are there to surround your child.
Mhm.
And what that says to the school is like, you know what, these parents are really engaged and involved. It also sends a signal too that like we can't really like kind of push this issue to the side,
Right.
because we felt, because that happens a lot, right? We
Mhm.
feel like when our kids are going through something that either they don't want to deal with it, they as in teachers, they don't want to deal with it. And I think that that's an opportunity, that's a missed opportunity,
Yes,
in a lot of
I
cases,
agree.
because we can't expect the teachers to be the end all be all.
Right.
It's a community thing,
That's right.
right? That's
And
that's
we've
there.
gotten so far away from it.
Hmm.
So, with that being said, trying to get back to it, how do we
Hmm.
support Black fathers that just, in our local school
The local
district?
schools,
Yeah,
yeah, you know,
engage basically.
engaged.
You gave us a few,
Yeah,
but
I think there's opportunity. There's opportunities. Just letting one. I mean, I feel like sometimes schools, and I understand, but schools sometimes feel like fortresses. It's hard to get in there.
Mhm.
It's like you got to go through this hoop and that hoop, sign this paper, wear this tag and all that. And a lot of times that could be like, never mind. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna
okay.
go
So there's
because
barriers.
there's some barriers. There's some
Okay.
barriers there. There's also barriers with sometimes with fathers, especially if their kid is going to like a school and then they didn't have a good experience there.
Mhm.
That's also a barrier.
Oh
You know
wow,
what I mean? Yeah.
history,
History. Yeah, absolutely. Like
big time.
if you go, so let's say if your son is in high school and then the dad went to that same high school but was acting out, and some of them same people might still be
Mhm.
there. You think they're gonna want to go on there? No, they're like, I'm not trying to. So there's that, as
Right.
well. And then the other barrier too is I'm gonna get to solutions in a second, but
Right.
another
Yeah,
barrier
I was
too,
thinking.
another another barrier too is like feeling like maybe I don't know enough to help my child.
Oh yeah.
Like coming home is always math for some reason.
Always.
My daughter said integers yesterday. I was like, I had to. It took me. I had to think about what she was talking about. I said, and oh yeah, she's talking about. Okay, I got you now. So there's there's that. So some solutions are for fathers is that we got to push through those barriers. We have to, because our child's life is at stake. I don't believe in leaving my child's education up to chance.
You heard
I
that?
don't.
Don't leave it up in chance. I like that. If you don't believe in, like you said, we have to push through those barriers. There are solutions. We started with barriers because we know that it is hard for Black and brown fathers when it comes to education and being engaged and involved in your students' education.
Mhm.
But today, 2024 is approaching. Today, December 20th, 2023. We're kicking down barriers.
Mhm.
We're kicking them down any way we can, every way we can to be involved, because our children's education is at stake. Not just their education, but their development.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
because like I back to what I was saying about my grandfather who
Mhm.
didn't have that education. So here it is. I said one side push education, push education, push education.
Mhm.
My father don't own anything, but then here it is on my grandmother's side where my grandfather, they didn't push education. You didn't. There was no books in the house, but
Mhm.
we everything we lived in was paid for.
Mm.
So, but there was involvement. We had to
Mhm.
go when we fish, like there were things,
Yeah.
and that was a part of our development
Mhm.
as a child, like
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm so glad that you started out with that. Black and
Mhm.
brown brothers involved and engagement is so
Mhm.
important. So back to the question,
Mhm.
it was how do we make the importance around child development in
Mhm.
Black and brown films? How do we make that important and elevate the importance and the conversations around it being important.
Can I touch back really quick on
Yes.
ways? Because I know I did some barriers,
Barriers, we didn't do
but
solution.
yeah, but I'm a firm believer in if I'm gonna put the problem out there, I need to put some possible solutions out there too as well. So, uh, uh, oh, and the things that I'm gonna mention, most of them I've done myself. One of them is school field trip. Now I'm gonna tell you.
I never heard of that. So yeah, tell us
So
about that.
so my son had a school field trip to the museum,
Okay, you
and yep, and so I really wanted my wife to go if she's watching. Well, she knows that already. But I was like, all right, I'm gonna go. Because in my mind, I'm thinking like, I gotta go to work, I got this to do, that to do. But I had to say, you know what, my child is important and the education, the experience is important. Might not get a lot of these opportunities, right? So I went there. Let me tell you something. My son was so proud that his dad was on a school field trip.
Oh wow.
Yes, like I was in his group. I had some of his friends there. The teachers were happy to see me there. And I think I took a day off that day from work and just being present. So field trips are sometimes easy ways to do that. If they're going to the park, if they're going to a museum, if they're going to the Strong Museum of Play, like anything like that, like that's a great way to have like presence. Like if your child is in the music and they have a concert, going to the concert, right? Not only going to the concert, but call family members up. Be like, hey, so-and-so's having a concert.
Oh, yeah.
Da, 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 da. And then bring the family out, to do that. So that's a way of really like starting to get involved with that. And then when we talk about engagement, it could be just like, hey, sending the teacher emails. Hey, how's it going? There's a chat actually that we have for our kids, and that's how we know what's going on during the day. Like the teacher could just send us a message and then we can send the message back. So there's a lot of like that. Again, using technology, to our advantage. Going to eat with your child at cafeteria.
Well, that's a big one.
That's another one, right? Not only that, but buy
the present.
Yes, the presents, right? Buy your kid and your kid friends ice cream if they got it. You know what I'm saying? Or doing a pizza party. I know as a dad, one of the things we like to do is, we like to flex a little bit. So we could buy pizza for the class. We could buy that for the class. Oh, Kareem's dad, got us pizza. They're going to remember that. Right. So these are all different ways.
Not only now, in that one visit, you're actually doing all of the things like in the topic. You're present. You're improve your part. You're helping better that development of that child and other children around them. You're helping the statistics around Black and brown men. So but we need more. We need more Black and brown men to kick in those doors.
Yeah.
And so in our local schools, it's like, oh, how do we engage more local fathers? Like if you can give us like one go-to or something to give us to take back to our local schools, because I'm majority of me and people I work around, we work in the city school district. So just one thing to give back to someone Black and brown, and not just our parents, staff, because each one teach one. So when that father come in, when that Black or brown staff member can say, okay, well, hey, Dad, I see you here. These are more ways to get involved, or more ways to even bring up the conversation. Because I think that's what it is. We need to start having the conversation more around what it means to be Black and brown in education.
Yeah. And I think this is happening, but I'm just going to say it. It's a simple message that says to all the dads, you're welcome here.
That's big. No, it's really big, because back to the barriers, like we were saying, a lot of the times you don't feel welcome, you don't feel smart enough, educated enough, important enough to walk through those doors, to be tempted by someone who has a title, who's working with your child, and you don't want to dare do anything or say anything that's going to be detrimental to your child.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, majority, I can guarantee probably 90% of the time, that could be the issue. So is what can we do to get more Black and brown brothers in education? So first things first is bring up the topic. We need more people. We need to talk about having more Black and brown men in education. First things first. So on your ways to school, in the cafeterias, this needs to be our topic of conversation at the end of the year going into the next year. Black and brown in education and the involvement in it. Because honestly, not only does it deters how our children develop, it actually helps bring back and take back our communities.
Exactly.
You know, that village, you know, that each one teach one, where we really had a village raising a child, because a village raised me. You know, I wouldn't dare let this village raise my children nowadays. I'm just being honest. But a village raised me. And it's so sad because of the village that's raising my son now. My son, I live in the city, but he goes to school in the suburbs. And I allow that village. And it's confusing my son in certain ways, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because in the city where I live at, we've let go. And in our city schools, we've let go. We need to take back our village, our communities, so that we can get Black and brown fathers back into education. We need to the development of our children. Our children we have these key, all of that stuff is a cry for help. It's all cry for help for our young boys. But we have no, if they call it, we have bell reform. Is that our treatment? We have no that we have no miscue. Like, we just, everything is bad. Like how you said, when we started the conversation with good, we can't start the conversation with good, because that's when you think of Black and brown, you think of bad.
You know, there's a old experiment with that, you know, with the baby doll. You're probably familiar with that. You know, if it's white, it's good. If it's a black, it must be associated with bad, right? And we know, and we know that that's not what it is, but that's the perception.
Right. And we need to change it. How do we?
So, and I think, and we're doing it, right? So I'm a big proponent of the things that we're doing that's working. So I know the district has different fatherhood initiatives. The county has a fatherhood initiative. They're doing work. We've even partnered with, when I say we, as in the city of Rochester's groups have partnered with Buffalo, you know, and some of the things that they're doing. So the work is happening. I think a lot of the work for the fathers really is happening at home. A lot of it with this discipline, with getting them engaged in the sports. I mean, I would say that for the city teams this year, this has been the best. This has been the best year.
Listen, I
athletically.
Yes, what you said when he started out that statement and said that it's starting at home. Let's give kudos to our Black and brown brothers, because it has started at home. And we got 3 teams that went D1. That went Section 5, went undefeated. 3 city school district teams. So that speaks. It does. Yeah. That speaks big time for the discipline starting at home.
And that goes back to the men that have those sons that are not their biological sons, right?
Yes.
That they're also stepping in. And see, one of the things I learned early on was that I grew up with my dad. So my dad's been with me all my life, disciplined, blue collar worker. And so when you were talking about the two dichotomies, like, so my mom was the person, she went to college. She's first generation, I'm second. And then my father, he went from high school straight to work. So they both valued education, but the person that was able to help me with education more was my mom, because she'd been there.
Right.
When it came to discipline and hard work and getting it done, then that was dad. And those two things existed in the house. So dad was like, hey, if you want to go to college, you can. But he said, you better do it now while I'm still working, so I can pay the tuition, right? So how many dads can say that? You know? And there's plenty that are doing that. There's plenty that are doing that, right? And then my mom was more like, all right, you know, I can help you, you know, with your papers, this class, that class. And that's how they worked it, you know, because I have 2 older brothers, and one of them went to college. The other one went for a little while. And then it was me. And then my younger brother. So I was the first one to graduate from a 4-year institution. And then my youngest brother graduated. And then my oldest brother went to community college down in Corning. Actually, shout out to the Franklin 1993 basketball team that went all the way to the state finals. I just want to put that out there. Oh, that's Coach Jackson. So I want to put that out there. Who's the dad to a lot of folks, right?
He is dad to a lot of folks.
But going back to what you were saying though, is that, like, so me as a dad, if I see a young man, that's like my son. You know what I mean? So what does that mean? That means that I'm gonna treat you with respect. I'm gonna say hi to you. I'm gonna notice you, because you want to know something that's kind of crazy. I work in a college environment. Those same black boys that are black young men now have some of the same insecurities that I saw in high school students. And really what they're looking for is somebody like me or any other black and brown male just to come up and say hi to them. Hey man, how you doing? What's going on? How's your classes doing? And then what'll happen is after a while, they won't feel like they're alone on the island. And I think that happens a lot, with our boys. They just feel like they're alone. And they feel like, yeah, like dad is there and he's supporting, but when it comes to education in school, for whatever reason, it just kind of feels like they're kind of doing it alone. And that's not always the case. And so not only is there the biological dad, going back to the village, right? Pick, choosing who these people are that you're going to put in your child's life, that's going to be very helpful, to do that. So just know that other positive men helps a lot.
So to clarify, you basically said the more the merrier.
The more
so
the merrier.
Each one, and
Yeah.
the black and brown in the communities. And like you
Yeah.
said, I do believe that discipline is starting at home. So I will give our community kudos on that, and that we should partner up.
Yeah.
Partner up in our
But
community.
then have a plan, right? So have a plan. So I'll just use myself because it's the easiest thing to do, right? So my son, he's very athletic. So I'm like, all right, cool. Since he's athletic, there's two sports I know he could play really well: football and basketball. I'm like, all right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put him in camps. He's gonna play for these teams. So I have to make a choice at some point with what team he's gonna be with, and then have them move along throughout the years. Because what a lot of people don't understand is that when it comes to sports, a lot of these teams that go on and win, they've been winning together for a while, like when they were kids.
Right.
And then now they just on varsity.
Yeah.
And
winning.
They know each other's intentions. They know what you're gonna do, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do that. And then as we go, and I'm gonna say, hey, if you want to do this, you need to have this grade. You got to know about the NCAA clearinghouse. You got to know about NILs. You got to know about all these things. And so I start putting them on now. Hey, you got to get your body together. You got to start lifting weights. And so these are the things that I know a lot of dads are already doing. Yeah. For their sons, right? If you have a child that wants to get into music, maybe take them to, we have one of the best music schools in the nation. Maybe have them take a class there. So there are things that we have to do now. Our kids are an investment. When I retire, I'm gonna be straight.
Our children are our investment. Invest in your children, in their development, in their education. I love that. Brother Kareem has given us ways to not only navigate throughout our children's school, he's given us affirmations and positives and letting us know that we're not alone when we're thinking about, okay, if you're not good enough or what you do and don't know to enter into your school. Basically, Brother Kareem is saying you got to take the bull by its horns. We have to just take it on. He gave kudos, and I like that. Like he said, our three schools that have our athletes, black and brown boys, kicking down doors and going to the country and bringing back those trophies. And that discipline, as it's happening in our city, but it's happening at homes. So now how do we get it in our schools? I think it'll trickle down to our schools eventually.
Yeah.
With black and brown, we're dealing with so much in the society that, home is important.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that we're getting it right, crossing our T's and dotting our I's, and teaching our children the right ways to conduct themselves when they're out in school, when they're out in the world and in the workplace.
There's another piece to this too, and if you don't mind me, because it's important. I know part of the reason why black fathers may seem like they're not involved because of the partner they had the child with.
That's another big thing. Let's stop here. You can hear Brother Kareem. I'm gonna put it in the ladies' words because he tried to put it in the ladies' terms. Who you have your children with, who you would have on the baby with, makes a lot. It makes a big difference in your child's development, and that is so true. Because if you don't get along, if you guys weren't friends, if you weren't in a relationship, if you were in a relationship, and if this woman is harboring feelings, it's the father, it's so much we deal with. So not to cut you off, but that.
Yeah, but I just wanted to put that in there too, because I'm sure folks that are listening is probably be like, well, I'm like, yeah, so those things play together. And if the child is really important, right, then put that energy into that. I grew up in a mixed family, blended family. I think that's what they call it, right? Blended family. And one thing is that I saw this work. I have two older brothers and they both have different moms. I saw all the moms work together. Like, it was amazing to me. So that's all I know.
So we started out with going half on a baby, but now it can happen. It can work. So
Mhm.
we started out with that, but we ended with the positive. It can
Mhm.
work, like he said. He put it in another simple term. What he called mixed family, we call it dysfunctional family. And it works.
It works.
It works when the
Mhm.
child is really the main
Yeah.
person. The development of the child is the thing that's on the table.
Mhm.
It works
Mhm.
because everybody else is already grown. So
Yeah.
if that is the main important thing, it works.
Yeah.
I like how you put that, brother
Yeah.
Kareem, because it's realistic and
Mhm.
you realistically speaking on, that's the world today.
Yeah.
We have dysfunctional feelings. That don't mean that we have to be dysfunctional people. That means that you
Mm.
can
Mm.
still grow. That means that you can still
Mm.
grow and develop into a law-abiding citizen that can
Mm.
go on with your life. It don't mean you can go to the NFL or you could be. It don't mean that you can't.
Mhm.
What it means is that just put your best foot forth, like for our children, our next generation coming up. Like we
Mhm.
have to put our best foot forward, and don't always think, okay, your kid all right, so you all right, because your kid's
Mhm.
growing up with my kid and with the other kid and with the neighbor's kid, and we want all kids to be all right, honestly,
Mhm.
in the world today.
Yeah.
And so and now, can you give me some more pointers on just ways of elevating this conversation? Because I'm a talkative person, and
Mhm.
trust me, in the grocery stores,
Uh-huh.
I always, everywhere I go, I'm going to be talking about Black fathers in education.
Yeah.
So just give me ways of, and before I just want to give kudos and a shout out and a special RIP to Kenny Jackson.
Yeah.
He was a father in education in the city of Rochester.
Mhm.
He was a father of many fathers. He was a father to a lot of students. He
Mhm.
was a friend of mine, and he's gone on to with the Lord now. But again, I would like to give a special shout out to that Black father in education.
Mhm.
That is like a father.
Mhm.
That is what we're calling a Black father in education.
Mhm.
Not only a father to your child, you can have other children speak on you being someone who educated them on anything,
Mhm.
hygiene, on your appearance, on respect, on anything. But brother Kenny Jackson, that's what he was, a Black
Yeah.
father in education.
I didn't know him, but I knew the impact that he made. And then when I was talking about sports earlier, I was actually thinking about him
Uh-huh.
because that's
That's
what
what made me think of him.
that's what I saw in the feed was just like, wow, like let's take a step back. If somebody were to tell me that having a male presence wasn't important,
Mm.
then you haven't been on social media the last week or so.
Okay, that's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Because we just saw it.
We just saw it. We have it.
We have
We
it.
got it going
And that's
on with
one
Rochester.
example.
We just want more of it.
That's right.
That's
And that's just one example.
That's a
Yeah,
big
that's just
example.
one
That's,
example.
you're so right.
So imagine if 100 dads did
imagine
something
that.
similar.
Imagine that. If
Mhm.
we had 100 dads like Kenny, like
Mhm.
KJ.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Come on, Kareem.
Yeah.
I think Kareem started something. He done played something for the city of Rochester now. And I guarantee you they'll stand up for it because, like you said, Black and brown fathers, I can give them kudos. Like you said, that those teams is what is it? What they call it? It's like evidence
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
what you're saying. It's
Yeah.
evidence that the
Yeah.
discipline is starting at home. It just
Mhm.
hasn't trickled all the way out yet.
Mhm.
But we're taking them back. I
Yeah.
really like that.
Yeah.
So basically, what Kareem's saying is just keep having a conversation. Keep
Mhm.
doing what we're doing. Keep the conversation topic on everybody's mind. Black fathers in education. Let's just keep it going. We're doing a great job. What we're already doing. We want to keep those things going.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you would like to add to the?
Yeah, I definitely want to make a pitch for when we think about education. Education comes in different forms, right? So there's the beautiful University of YouTube.
The University of YouTube. It has taught me some things. I'm kind of skeptical of a few things, but
like that's one way that our youth are learning. That's ways that I've learned different things by watching YouTube. I've learned to build a business watching YouTube. In listening to other people and how they've done it, right? Then there's conventional education. So there's going to school. Then after that, going off to college. The one thing I'll say about college is that always think about college as an investment and go into it with a plan. And so one of the things I used to tell parents all the time is that you would never just go buy a house.
Right.
Without doing an inspection, without looking at it first. trying to like
It's a
talk to a
process.
neighbor. You know what I mean? You're not just gonna hop into the house,
Uh-huh.
right? Most people won't do this. So why would you do that with education?
Right.
Why would you just say, "Oh, I'm going to this school"?
Mhm.
You ain't even been there.
Mhm.
You don't know what it's like. You don't know if it's even a welcoming place,
Mhm.
right? You don't even know what the statistics are. Like the university that I'm at right now, that I work at, the average graduate has a salary coming out in the first year or two over $70,000,
Oh yeah, sign me up for that.
which which already puts them, at least in Rochester, way
Yeah.
above the average,
Yeah.
right? And so imagine, I'll tell this real quick story, and then I'll be done with that part. But so I was like, I was a senior in college, and I had to take one more class. It was a weather class, right? So I had drove all the way down to Philadelphia to visit a friend down there, and then I had to come back because I had to take a class. Now I was still at that age where I thought that if your gas tank was on E, I was gonna make it. So I I made it all, and I didn't have no money, right? So I had made it all the way to Henrietta, and there was a friend of mine that went to the university that I work at now. And I was like, "Hey man, listen, I'm out of gas. You have $5." And just to give you his situation, he had an old beat up Saturn. The car wouldn't even reverse. You had to push his car back in order to get it to work, right? So this man gave me his last $5.
Wow.
And then when he left and graduated, because we were, struggling college students, right? When he graduated making six figures.
Mm. 6 figures. He went to one of those schools. He did his research
because he had a plan.
He had a plan.
And he knew the majors that would get him the result that he was looking for. So there's this push about go to college, go to college, go to college.
Listen up.
And you know how many, and there's a lot of people that go to college and they come back home. And then they go on to community college, which is fine. But if you're going to do that, at least make it part of the plan, right? So that's what I want to say about college, is that we have to have a plan. The other part of it too is you can go in and get a trade. I've had to stick my hand down a toilet before. Ask me if you could pay me to do that. No. I ain't doing it. So when I was little, I had flushed a chicken bone down the toilet and it plugged the toilet up. So my dad got me one night because my dad worked late. Had to take the toilet off. And he said, "All right, put these gloves on, stick your hand down there and get the chicken bone out." I never flushed chicken bone down there again. I also said I wouldn't do this. Like, this isn't me. Like, I will pay the money for the person to do that. So if anybody that's watching, like, these jobs might not be sexy, but a lot of these people walking around debt free.
That part.
They walk around debt free
because they ain't go to college.
Yep, and they got a lot of money in the bank. And then the last one I'll just mention is military. And I know that there's a lot of feelings about military, but I talked to a classmate of mine because I'm working on my doctorate degree who did 20 years. He retired with a 6-figure salary.
Yeah.
So if he don't want to work, guess what? He don't have to.
Back on that military, because see, as a kid coming up, they made you think like the military and Navy, you was gonna be frontline, you was doing all these things. I got a neighbor, he's an ex-sergeant in the military. And so I was asking him, because I'm like, I'm disciplined. I'm like, okay, I've done everything. I think I want to sign up for the military. You got until you're 45 to sign up. And it just pays for your education, and you get to travel all around the world. It educates you. It's a part of your development. There's so many myths around military and the Navy and stuff that is not true.
That was a way out for a lot of us, though, to get out of like having to just to get into stuff. You just go to the military, get away from the environment, get some discipline, get some money in your pocket, 0% on home loans. All of that, right? Like, people don't even realize.
He's so good right now. He turned 50 the other day. He would have got him a 750 biz.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll do everything at 50. But yeah, because he did everything as a young boy coming up, like you said, and he did that military. He became a sergeant. He did that.
Yeah, my cousin worked in a hospital. There's people that's repairing things. There's people that's working on computers. There's so many different. Now, you have to take tests and you have to get education while you're in. The military has their own kind of education system, but there's different avenues. There's different ways. Even like being an athlete, you don't just have to be the star running back. You could be the star
Come on.
sportscaster.
Come on. Have that plan.
You know,
Have
so
the
have
plan.
that plan. Yeah.
Have the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of money in it.
Mm-hmm.
Have that plan though.
Yeah.
You got to have the plan.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. And so I think we covered everything. How do fathers? Yep. That is it. So I do want to ask though, from a woman's point of view.
Okay.
Because like you were saying when we said before, like who you have that baby with. So in the Black and brown community, we have a lot of babies out of wedlock. We have a lot of children out of wedlock. And not because of it's just plain out of straight ignorance. A lot of people didn't know when you had a baby and you weren't married, that baby was out of wedlock, and here it is, you're cutting the chances of giving your baby, because a lot of people get into it and they figure, okay, they think about themselves. I know that. But okay, it's like, how do we get Black and brown fathers to get back engaged into their children's life, or even in children's life of women who they may be dating, who they're not involved? When we're talking to the not involved fathers.
I'm going to say the T word. Therapy.
Big time. And therapy, see, as I just finished reading this book called Black Women's Mental Health. It's by DeJoy Evans, Dr. DeJoy Evans.
Okay.
And it talks about therapy in there. And it talks about not only do we not seek therapy, but how America misdiagnosed and don't treat us, because since we don't go to therapy, there's no treatment for us. It's like, so it's like, it's just, we're not placed in the cracks. Okay, it's there and nothing's being done about it.
Yeah.
So we have to kick in those doors of therapy and understand that, yeah, we may be going through something, and talking to people that look like us is not going to help it. Abusing drugs won't help it. Like, we really have to go speak to someone. And yeah, that person may be having issues too, and they may go through things, because that's another thing Black and brown people do. We quick to say, oh, they may be going through it too. Yes, they may be too, but they get paid to help us go through ours.
That part right there.
That part right there. It's their job to help us navigate through our issues. Yeah, and so, and then another thing, as a woman for Black and brown, like, why is it that so you said they be afraid, but a lot of Black and brown men, like, when it's like, let's just say it's the kitchen, they get up out the kitchen, it get too hot, they leave. Like, so that's the thing. Like, it's like the things get heated, and it's like, okay, they gone.
Yeah. So some of that is to preserve freedom. Some of that is that, to the fact where sometimes we get so upset, because here's the thing, men have emotions too.
Oh, do y'all?
And a lot of
they said men have emotions.
Men have emotions, yeah. But a lot of times that emotion that we see a lot is anger. Is anger. Anger is an emotion.
You're right.
Right? So we get to a point where we get so angry, we're like, I'm just gonna head out of here. And a lot of that too, again, is trauma. Not knowing how to deal with issues, not knowing how to even have a conversation. Even if we don't agree, we should still be able to respect each other enough to have a conversation. And you know what? And if we don't respect each other, but we have a child, we should at least respect the child enough in order to have the conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean? So a lot of that, again, it goes back to therapy and counseling. And really what we need is healing. So we have historical trauma that seems to be coming up a lot, especially lately. I'm not gonna, name any trials, but then there's just,
and we not gonna act like it don't exist,
right? And then there's the traumas of just everyday life. There's traumas of like, someone can say my dad wasn't around, so like my father's father, nowhere in the picture. So you may ask the question, well, then how was he able to be a dad? My dad did the best he could do with what he knew.
Ooh, hold on, my mother. Listen, I am 41 years old. I bear the burden because my father was in prison and my mom was on drugs. My whole adolescent years, like me going throughout school. That's why I'm about to graduate as a grad school student right now.
Congratulations too.
Thank
by the way.
you.
Yeah.
And I harbored feelings, not with my father, but with my mother for the longest. Up until probably like maybe a year ago. And
Mhm.
we weren't talking, and I just said it to her. I was like, I'm not okay with, you ain't do no parent teacher conferences, and you didn't, and
Mhm.
you ain't helping, and this is that
Mhm.
and the third. And she was like, listen, I did with what I can do, with what I could, with what I had at the
Mhm.
time. Then I started thinking about the time.
Mhm.
In the
Mhm.
70s. Hold on.
We know what was going on.
Ooh, it was a lot going on. I would have crying for my parents at the time, like, ooh,
Yeah.
I resent. You went through
Mhm.
all of that and you raised kids and
Mhm.
like they were going through some
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Like
Gotta have grace. We gotta
like
have grace for them too. Now, not to say everything they did was right
right.
towards us, and we have the right to feel that pain
Mhm.
from that. But we gotta understand, like, having a dad that didn't grow up with a dad who had a whole different family,
Mhm.
and then it's just you and your mom, and you feel like, where was everybody else at? Yeah, that they're gonna harbor some feelings with that,
Right.
right? So when you have your own kids, you either do what they did,
Mhm.
or you do the opposite of that. Now, thankfully, he did the opposite of that, but there were still some things that were not there, not because he didn't want to do it, because he did what he knew. And my dad's still around today, praise God, and we have a wonderful, wonderful relationship. Like if
Yeah.
I don't call him or something like that, he like, so where you been?
You should see my dad.
Yeah,
You
you know what I mean?
he's
But
still
we have that because I came to a realization early on. I said he did the best of what he knew. Same with my mom. And I have to respect that.
So ladies, let's take away from that trauma and therapy plays a big part into our black and brown men.
Mhm.
When we come to them with anger, they already got anger bodied up and built up.
Mhm.
When it comes to our children, like we lay down with them to have the baby, so let's just work with them when it's time when it comes to development, when it comes to raising them.
Mhm.
Let's always remember and keep in mind. Yeah, I'm not saying okay, let him run around do whatever it is he want to
Mhm.
do as a man. I'm saying just keep in mind the trauma that goes along and the trials that goes along with black and brown men
Mhm.
when we're raising our children and trying to develop them, because I know at times, because I'm a woman,
Mhm.
we our feelings, my emotions
Mhm.
are important and matter too, but
Mhm.
we got to think about our counterparts, and if we do want them around, what they deal with and how they deal with it. That's the
Mhm.
thing, how they deal with it different. As a woman, we're strong, we deal with a lot of things, and so we're
Mhm.
able to embody a lot of things. But men, because as I've noticed, and that was the question I asked, why do they run away? And he
Mhm.
gave me a good explanation to it. The anger they're already dealing on top of the anger we're
Mhm.
giving them, instead of lashing out or blowing out, like, leaving
Mhm.
when it gets hot. So I
Mhm.
think that is a good
Mhm.
solution to it. So
Mhm.
would you like to is there any other insights or things you'd like to
Yeah,
leave for the people?
yeah. I want to give this. I'm married, been married now for, let's see, wow, yeah, 11 years, going on 12.
Go,
So thank you very much.
Kareem.
Thank you.
Yes.
And something recently where had a disagreement, and one of the things that I'm learning even as a dad is that, like, especially like when kids are involved, they gotta see, like, so they'll see like the problems, but then they also gotta see when you work things out.
Yes.
See, that's the
Yes.
key to
Yes.
starting to
Yes.
work with or work through these
Yes.
things, right? So if they see like, oh yeah, mom and dad got in an argument, because it happens, it's
It
real life,
happens. Really. Yeah.
got in an argument, but then they see, oh, mom and dad worked it out. Oh, and they good. That's hope, right? That's giving them an example of, like, what, I could do this too. So if I get in an argument with somebody, I'm not gonna not talk to them for 10 days, right? Or I'm gonna, be petty, towards them, right? Like really being able to see, like, we can work things out and we can be cool and we can move on. Because here's the thing. Again, let's go back to the investment. Like if you have two parents and they have a child, right? That kid is your investment. You got to think 2, 3 generations down the road. You got to think, if I set them up, that means that their grandkids gonna be set up,
Mhm.
and then those grandkids gonna be set up, and now you have a generational curse that has now turned into a generational blessing,
Amen.
because, and it's going down through the line. But our generation,
Our
we
generation,
we got to do the work.
we gotta do the work.
That's what it
No,
comes
because
down
that's
to.
it.
Do the
That's it.
work.
That's
Yeah.
like my life story.
Mm,
Our generation, we gotta
mhm.
do the work. Our
Yeah.
ancestors did the work.
Yes, they did.
We gotta do the work. Our
Mhm.
babies after us, they're
Mhm.
doing the work.
Yep.
It's our
Mhm.
generation. We gotta do the work. Ain't that much clubbing, ain't that much partying, ain't that much traveling in the world.
I paid a lot of money just to stand around.
Did you hear what the man said?
I paid a lot of money just to stand
Just
around.
standing around.
In time, right?
That's it. Time.
Mhm.
I like that. Presence,
Mhm.
time, involved, engagement. Just
Mhm.
take back our streets. I see we're on the verge of it, and I like what we got going. Let's keep this conversation going in the rooms. If you tuned in tonight, don't let this be the last time you talk about Black fathers and education. Keep the conversation going. We have great fathers, Black fathers in education. Kudos. Give them kudos. Give them praise. That's another thing. Like he
Mhm.
said, a lot of the times we don't big up our Black fathers in education who are doing good, so they can keep doing a good job, and so that they can try to bring along someone else so they can know that they're doing a good job. Okay, let me go let them know about this so they can come along and do the same thing also. So again, let's give kudos and praise when they're due to our Black and brown brothers in education. I want to thank the Black and brown brothers in education who's already doing the work. I want to thank the ones who's thinking about doing the work, and I want to thank the ones who's about to start doing the work. I want to thank Brother Kareem for coming in tonight and giving me so many more answers to like a lot of the questions I had in my head. And it's crazy because I kind of figured, like with that anger and stuff. But to hear it coming from another man is like confirm what I had already been feeling. Because it's so hard for a woman to lessen her feelings when it comes to Black and brown men, which is a whole nother subject. And hopefully we'll have an episode on that. But it is. We're so hard on our brothers and sisters. We have to not be so hard on our brothers. The world is already hard on Black and brown men. So definitely, if we can get them in the rooms of education, let's be a little nicer. All right. I think that's it. That I have on Black fathers in education. Is that all for you, Brother Kareem?
I think that's it. I guess just wanted to let people know that I do have a couple books out. One of them is called The Gentleman's Guide.
Oh, wow.
It's been out
tools?
Some tools for young men, young Black and brown. It's for any young man, but when I wrote it with young Black and brown men in mind because of what I was seeing in high school.
Cool. So do you ever think about getting them schools like into the city school district, into the schools? Like, because you see they got like a Taylor Swift in college, like of course. Y'all ain't seen it yet?
Nah, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah. So we need to get that book into Rochester City School District because this Kareem is Rochester's finest, right? One of our own. Yes, we need that book. Say the name of the book again.
The Gentleman's Guide.
The Gentleman's Guide. And where can we purchase the book?
You can find it right on Amazon.com.
Amazon.com. Now we need any staff, teachers, anybody in the city school district. You hear this? Get this book a part of your classroom curriculum. Gentlemen.
The Gentleman's Guide. Yeah,
the Gentleman's Guide.
Now let me be clear on something.
I'm an SSO in the city school district. The young boys need it. The Gentleman's
Guide. I wrote it a lot for them. Because when I was writing it, I was working at one of the schools, and I was like, something wrong here. If you can't say a word and not curse after every other word, but we need to figure something out.
I think you should write a women's guide.
We need a bigger. I've been told that. I can't. I'll partner with someone, but I don't feel comfortable writing that alone. Like I need to have a woman with me to be able to help me with that. I know my limitations, but I wanted to be clear with you on one thing. So I have from the age of 5 until 10, I went to a city school. So I went to 3 different schools. They were all great, and went 37, 55, and 52 school. And then after that, I moved out to the suburbs because things were happening, and my parents were like, you know what? Since our kid is our investment, we need to put them in a different environment.
We'll leave on that note, you guys. Your children are your investment. Thanks for tuning in. See you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.